It's Eva Cartman, and you're listening to the Dream Big podcast show, the place to go to learn, laugh, and grow. Today we welcome Alex Banayan, who's going to share how the third door is the key to achieving our big dreams. What's the third door? You must be asking. Well, you're about to find out. This is episode 88, Big Dreamers, and it's time to dream big.
Welcome to the Dream Big podcast show. We're inspiring you to shoot for the moon, take aim and go. We bring to you amazing guests who truly love what they do. Every day they're living their dreams, and so can you. Dream big, take action to reach your goals. Are you pumped yet? It's showtime, let's rock and roll.
Welcome to the Dream Big podcast show. I am your host, Steve Cartman. And today, I'd like to start by telling you about a special gift we have for all you big dreamers. We created a super cool Dream Big journal that we want to ship to you. And get this, the front of the journal has an illustration of an astronaut in outer space. What is so amazing is that the journal is printed and personalized with your own face and name. So you'll see your face on the cover of this journal as an astronaut. Oh, and it's free. We just have you cover the shipping. Parents, please go to dreambigpodcast.com/journal to claim your free personalized Dream Big journal while this offer is still available. You'll see a video of my mom and I showing our journals. Go to dreambigpodcast.com/journal to get your free journal. Now, it's time for you all to enjoy our discussion with Alex Banayan. As soon as Alex told me that he was also a Harry Potter superfan, I knew that this would be a lively interview. And that it was. It turns out that Alex and I have a lot more than Harry Potter in common. We are both passionate about tracking down and interviewing the world's most interesting and successful people. Alex is a pro at this and shared some amazing tips, specifically how he uses the third door to land his big interviews. If you love this conversation as much as I did, be sure to support Alex's newly released book entitled The Third Door, which you can pick up at thirddoorbook.com. Without further ado, here's our interview with Alex Banayan. Let's roll the tape. Hi, Alex.
Hello, how are you?
Good. We are so excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be a ton of fun.
Alex, we cannot wait to talk to you about everything you have for us. And I know Eva is double excited because you're both fans of Harry Potter. And we will talk about that as well.
But first, before we get into the really deep things, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your childhood. Where'd you grow up and what were you like as a kid?
So I grew up in Los Angeles and my parents came to America as refugees. I'm the son of Persian Jewish immigrants, which pretty much means when I came out of the womb, my mom cradled me in her arms, and then she stamped MD on my butt and sort of sent me on my way. And in third grade, I wore, medical scrubs to school for Halloween. I went to pre-med summer camp, and my whole life I thought I was going to be a doctor because that was not only my parents' expectations, it was my grandparents' dream for me. When they came to America, they had this belief that because they fled their country in a revolution, they believe that if you come to America and you get an education, you become a doctor, that's a safe life. And that was their biggest dream for me.
That's interesting story. We have listeners, big dreamers and young big dreamers, and a lot of big dreamers, us parents probably sometimes feel the same way. So I feel like there are a lot of lessons here to be learned from you, Alex, and from your story. So how did you feel in college? So you got into college, right?
I got into college and I started as a pre-med and I was the pre-med of pre-meds.
Right. So did you feel you belonged? Did you feel you were in the right place? When did you figure out that's something that it is not what you want to do.
Or not meant for you.
Yeah, because obviously you chose different career, as we know by
Well,
now.
it started very simply. I remember just lying on my dorm room bed in college, staring up at the ceiling and looking over at this stack of biology books on my desk, feeling like they were dementors sucking the life out of me.
From Harry Potter.
Exactly. And at first I started to wonder, maybe I'm just being lazy. But as weeks and weeks passed by, I started to wonder, maybe I'm not on my path. Maybe I'm on a path somebody placed me on and I'm just rolling down. So I start going through this, what do I want to do with my life crisis? And not only do I not know what I want to do, I have no idea how all these people who I looked up to, how they did it. How did Bill Gates sell his first piece of software out of his dorm room when nobody knew his name? Or how did Steven Spielberg become the youngest studio director in Hollywood history when he was rejected from film school? These are the things they don't normally teach you in class. So I just went to the library and went through business books and biographies and self-help books looking for answers.
Did you find them?
Eventually I was left empty-handed. And that's when my, very naive thinking kicked in. And I thought, well, if no one's going to write the book I'm dreaming of reading, why not write it myself? Which is why I love where you guys have, the big dreamers. This whole journey started with a really big dream.
Yeah.
It's
So,
like Eva, we
Yeah.
couldn't find anything that would be relevant to her age when she was 6, and we were driving in the car listening to Tim Ferriss and all other business podcasts, me and my husband, and it was like, is there something for kids like that? It was like, interesting. So we went online, searched, and there was nothing done by a kid for the kids. And Eva
Right.
goes, well, maybe we should create one.
Yeah.
So we're on the same mission.
Yes.
yeah. So, it's really important to be open to new possibilities. I'm only 9 right now, and I don't know exactly where life is going to take me or what I'll do, but I'm open to new possibilities and curious about people because I want to I want to know, even if not right now, I don't know what I'm going to do. I know that later in life, I'll figure it out.
Right.
Absolutely, 100%.
So, Alex, what happened next? So you didn't find the book. You decided right away, I'll write a book, and all of a sudden the book was born in a month? Or what happened next?
No, I wish. So what ended up happening is that when I had this idea of, what if I write this book I'm dreaming of reading, the biggest problem to me was getting money to fund the journey. I was buried in student loan debt. I was all out of bar mitzvah cash. So there had to be a way to make some quick money. And 2 nights before my final exams in college, I was in the library when I saw on Facebook someone was offering tickets to The Price is Right. It's the longest running game show in US history. And, I remember when I was 8 years old, I would stay home from school when I was sick and I would watch the show because it would be the only thing on TV at the time. And my first thought was, what if I go on the game show and win some money to fund the book? But, I told myself it was a stupid idea because I had finals in 2 days. Plus, my mom would kill me.
Right.
Yeah.
Her dream would be crashed, Alex.
Right, exactly. And, my parents were sacrificing so much for me to be in college. So I told myself it was a bad idea and to not think about it. But it was almost as if somebody had tied a rope around my gut and was slowly pulling me in a direction. So that night I just decided to do the logical thing and pull an all-nighter to study.
For exam, obviously.
But I didn't study for exams. I studied how to hack The Price is Right.
Oh my God.
And I went on the show the next day and did this ridiculous strategy. And I ended up winning the whole showcase showdown winning a sailboat, selling the sailboat, and that's how I funded the book.
What?
Wow.
Is the book about that? How to hack the show?
So
I'm
you know,
afraid if that would be it, then Big Dreamers
Well,
would.
how did you like figure out what the prices were?
So
What
that
were
was
your
that was
strategies?
the hardest part.
That's the secret that you get in the book.
So the whole, what I realized is one of the main tricks of getting onto The Price is Right is there's 300 people in the audience and 8 get called down to play the games. And out of the 8, 1 wins. So if you calculate the odds, if you do the math, the hard part is being called out of the 300. Once
Yeah.
you're in the 8, I figured I could sort of figure it out from there. So the whole adventure of hacking The Price is Right was this really wild journey, and it gave me the money to set off on this quest. And it took 2 years to track down Bill Gates. It took 3 years to track down Lady Gaga. And I've been working on the book for the past 7 years.
Wow.
And it's finally just finished.
Oh my God, I cannot wait to read this book because just think about it. It's called The Third Door, and we would like to hear the concept deeper. But just think, guys, not that many people have access to Lady Gaga, billionaire Warren Buffett, Bill Gates.
It was like, Alex, it's like when you're trying to look for the Deathly Hollows in Harry Potter. It's like,
Oh my, that is the best analogy I've ever heard.
That's so cool.
yeah.
What's funny, it really did feel like that. And I think that's one of the reasons I love Harry Potter so much, because
They're like keeping
love,
their
like-
dreams and looking for it.
exactly. And I love going on adventures, especially with my best friends.
That's so cool. So tell us more about it. We would like to hear more. So you got access finally to these people, but how? Tell us what the third door means. And by the way, we will link the dates, and it's coming out June 5th, right, Alex? The
Yes,
book
it's
will
in
come out-
bookstores everywhere on June 5th.
That's amazing. We will
Okay.
obviously link the links to the stores to Amazon. It will be in Amazon as well, right? So we
Yes.
will link
And I bet
everything in
we'll
our
be the first
show
people to
notes.
buy it.
Yes. Maybe we'll meet with Alex in person and get
Ah.
the autograph.
I would love
Right?
that. And yeah, just like you said, the whole premise of The Third Door and the idea behind it is that after going on this 7-year journey and doing all of these interviews, I realized that every single person who I interviewed treats life and business and success the same way. And the analogy that came to me, because I was 21 at the time, was that it's sort of like getting into a nightclub. There's always 3 ways in. There's the first door, the main entrance, where the line curves around the block, where 99% of people wait around hoping to get in. And then there's the second door, the VIP entrance, where the billionaires and celebrities go through. And school and society have this way of making us feel like those are the only 2 ways in. You either wait your turn, or you're born into it and you have no choice. But what I've learned is that there's always the third door. And it's the door where you jump out of line, run down the alley, bang on the door 100 times, crack open the window, go through the kitchen. There's always a way in. And it doesn't matter if that's how Bill Gates sold his first piece of software, or how Jane Goodall figured out a way to study the chimpanzees in the heart of Africa. They all took the third door. So that's not only the title of the book and the thesis of the book, that's really the energy I'm trying to inject into the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what was your exact story? How did you track Lady Gaga? Like, was it like, let's schedule, like, okay, you got in the third door, right? And was it right away questions? It was like, because you have split seconds to see
Yeah.
her? Or it was like, okay, let's schedule, sit down and afternoon tea and we'll have a conversation.
Right. So with everyone, it was different. And, with Bill Gates, it was a sit-down interview in his private office in Seattle with Warren Buffett, I ended up hacking his shareholders meeting and asking the questions in front of 30,000 people. And the ways I got the interviews were all different too. With Larry King, I had to chase him through a grocery store. For Lady Gaga, it ended up being this 4-day adventure in Austin, Texas.
Wow.
With Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple Computers, I ended up having, Chinese food with him 2 blocks from Apple headquarters. So the beautiful thing about this book is that when I had started, my wish was that it would be this straightforward process. And as life showed me, it's never straightforward. And that's
it was
part
a
of the beauty of
quest.
it. Exactly.
So, I was wondering how I can use the third door to score some big name guests, like J.K. Rowling, which is my dream guest, or any of the other really famous people.
So I'll tell you 2 things. One thing is the most effective way to do it that I've learned. And do you know what? I'll tell you this story of how Steven Spielberg launched his career, because the big lesson is in there. So when Steven Spielberg was 19 years old, he had been rejected from film school, but instead of giving up on his dream, he decided to take his education into his own hands. And he was at Universal Studios Hollywood and went onto the tram ride. Did you ever go on the tram ride when you were there?
Yeah, lots of times.
Right. So, you go on this tram ride and it takes you through the back lot, and Spielberg jumped off the tram, hid in a bathroom on the set, waited for the tram to drive away, and he started to walk around the lot. And he eventually bumped into this older gentleman. His name was Chuck Silvers. And Chuck Silvers worked for Universal Television. And Silver sees this young kid and asks him what he's doing, and Spielberg tells him about his dream to be a director, and they end up talking for a while. And then Chuck Silver says, how would you like to come back to the lot? And Spielberg goes, that would be a dream. So Chuck Silvers writes him a 3-day pass. And Spielberg comes the first day, and the second day, and the third day. And then on the 4th day, he puts on a suit and carries his dad's briefcase and walks up to the security gate and puts a hand in the air and goes, "Hey, Scotty." And the security guard just waves back, and Spielberg walks right through. And he spends the next few months on the lot, going into editing bays and on, different sets, learning as much as he can. He asks producers and actors and actresses out to lunch, and eventually Chuck Silvers becomes a mentor. And Chuck Silvers sits Spielberg down and says, "Look, there needs to be a point where you stop schmoozing around the lot and you go and you make a short film that you can show people to show what you can do." So Spielberg took his mentor's advice and he went and spent months making this, incredible short film called Amblin. And when he finally went back to Chuck Silvers to show him this short film, it was so good that a teardrop fell down Chuck Silvers' face.
That's a cool story.
And it's amazing because what happened next is the most important part. Chuck Silvers was so moved that he reached for the phone and called Sid Sheinberg, the vice president of Universal Television. And he goes, "Sid, I have something I need you to see." And Sid goes, "Oh, I have a ton of things I need to see. I don't have the time for that." And he goes, "No, you have to watch this tonight." And the vice president goes, "Do you think it's that goddamn important?" And he goes, "Yes, it's that goddamn important." And that night, the vice president watched it, called and said he needs to meet with Spielberg immediately. And when Spielberg showed up, he was offered a contract to be the youngest director in Hollywood history.
Wow.
And the remarkable part of that story, which is why I think it's, it taught me so much, and I think it might be helpful for you when you reach out to get these interviews, is that while Spielberg had incredible talent, so do a lot of other really talented aspiring directors. The thing, in my opinion, that makes his story so different is actually Chuck Silvers, who, in my mind, I sort of think of as this inside man or this inside woman, someone inside of the organization who believes in you enough who's willing to put their reputation on the line to help you get in. And that's really what makes the difference. So the biggest thing I would say is if you're trying to reach out to J.K. Rowling, what's more important than reaching J.K. Rowling is actually getting in touch with someone who works with her closely, who believes in you and believes in what you're doing and is willing to vouch for you to help you get through the door.
Yeah.
It's that introduction of someone you trust.
Right, and having them be your advocate, because that's really what makes the biggest difference.
So you gotta find someone who's really close with J.K. Rowling that you know to get inside the third door and get an interview.
That's exactly right. And, sometimes it's hard the question is, how do you then find someone who's close with her? That's also a tricky part. And one of the best things that I've learned on my journey came from Tim Ferriss, the author of the 4-Hour Workweek.
My mom and dad always talk about him.
So he's a really incredible guy. And he, the way I got a chance to interview him is I had to crouch in a bathroom for 30 minutes and jump out of the bathroom when he was walking past. But we eventually did the interview. And one of the things that he taught me in the interview was that he launched his career by cold emailing people. When he wanted a job out of college, he cold emailed the CEO of a startup he wanted to work for. When he wanted to become an author, he cold emailed other authors to ask for advice. And I asked Tim, what his secret was, and Tim gave me this cold email template that's worked wonders. And I'll share it with you if you want.
Sure.
Yes, please.
Okay, so this is how it works. So it starts off like this, dear so-and-so, I'm sure you're incredibly busy and you get a lot of emails, so this will only take 60 seconds to read. And then boom, you go to the next paragraph. And this is really where you share 1 to 2 sentences maximum of who you are and some context of why that's relevant to the person you're emailing. And again, 1 to 2 sentences max. And then you go to the next paragraph where you ask your very specific question for the person. And you want to make that question as easy to answer as possible, whether it's, do you have a book you recommend to a young writer? Or, what's your, best piece of advice for someone who wants to get into this or this university, whatever it is. And then the final paragraph is the key. You go, I totally understand if you're too busy to respond. Even a 1 or 2 line reply will completely make my day. All the best, Tim. And that email has not only helped me get interviews and to reach out to mentors, I've also shared it with early readers of the book, and they've reached out to Sheryl Sandberg and gotten responses, and Malcolm Gladwell, and it's really worked wonders.
Yeah, so also in the email, you could also can put why you want them, and I know some people ask what and how, but why really gives the details and gives the full reason, and that's more, and they're more
100%.
likely to come.
And I would add that if you put what's in it for them and for others, a lot of people, very famous people especially, sometimes they're not interested in interviews itself, but they're interested why you doing it and who you sharing it with, right? Like Dream Big podcast, Eva been able to get amazing guests that a lot of people cannot get.
Why I love interviewing such successful people is that I get to learn from their journey.
And you give it back to your listeners.
And I get to teach my listeners.
Yeah.
That's amazing. You guys get it because you've been living this.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I love about about the story that you just shared, Alex, that especially about Steven Spielberg and how to reach people that you don't usually have access to, that all these people who are achieving finally their dreams. They have a dream, but they also persistent in their action. They don't just sit on a couch and they dream about it. They go and they look for ways. They look for that third door. Third door not going to magically appear in front of you, right?
Yeah, and how many people would have accomplished their big dream if they'd given up in their early career? None,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
So that's what I love about you. You know, it doesn't matter how hard it seemed like to track all of these people.
Yeah,
it's not like you were born in those families that introduce you at the fancy dinners or at the fancy parties. You just went for it.
You did anything it took to get those guests, and
Right.
That's why I think your book will be triple special.
Yeah.
Because
so big dreamers, remember to buy the book on June 5th.
2018. And if you're listening later than June 5th, 2018, make sure you find it. It's going to be Amazon.
Yep,
and I'm
you
sure it's going to be...
Get the book no matter what.
I'm sure it will be best-selling book. But you're going to become bestseller. No doubt.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
So let's keep going. And Alex, I'm wondering, so the first interviews that you did, it probably was nerve-wracking to talk to these people, right? Not only you track them, but about the actually speaking and asking them questions. How did you overcome those fears of asking questions, public speaking, and you spoke on stages since then? That would be very, very helpful for our audience because sometimes they're nervous about that first interaction.
Yeah, like what made you overcome those doubts and fears and keep on going with their big dream?
So what I've learned is that one of the biggest misconceptions about the world's most successful people is that none of them are fearless. Everyone likes to talk about being fearless and this and that. And what I've learned is that every single one of these people were actually incredibly scared when they were just starting out and, still have tremendous fears. So while fearlessness shouldn't be the goal. Fearlessness is jumping off the cliff and not worrying about the consequences. That's crazy. But what's incredible and what's necessary is courage. And the difference is that courage is acknowledging your fear of jumping off the cliff, analyzing the consequences, and then deciding that you still care so much about it that you're going to take one thoughtful step forward anyway.
Yeah.
And anyone out there who's, going after their big dream, or even trying to figure out what that dream is. Fear is a natural part of that process. So if you're scared, it doesn't mean anything's wrong. It actually means you're on the path.
You're alive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, one of the best things I've ever read about fear came in this book, which is one of my favorite books. It's called When Things Fall Apart. And a Buddhist nun named Pema Chodron wrote the book. And she asked this guru, what's the secret to dealing with fear? What's your relationship with fear? And this guru goes, I agree with my fear. I agree with it. And I thought that was so powerful because for me personally, one of the biggest issues I have is not only do I get scared, I then get mad at myself for being scared, and then I get frustrated for being scared, and then there's all these extra complicated emotions around my fear. And that's where I really become paralyzed. Whereas if I tell myself that, let's say I'm scared of, let's say it's a big speech I'm about to give, and, I'm afraid to make that, it's right before the speech, and I'm getting really, really, really nervous. And my stomach is twisted and my throat feels clogged. When I try to push through the fear, it doesn't work. But then when I remind myself, you know what? It actually makes perfect sense that I'm scared. I agree with it and it's completely normal. What ends up happening is the fear doesn't disappear, but it begins to loosen its grip. And I can finally take a breath. And that's the most important gift you can give yourself.
That's so valuable. Thank you so much. It's I actually, even while you were talking about it, I went through it and it's like, it's true. And it's like as if all your body
Mhm.
kind of
Yeah.
relaxes.
You know, I
and
should have thought about that when I was at Knott's Farm and going on the accelerator, which is the fastest ride there.
she's she loves adventure, so she loves to challenge herself
Yeah.
all the time. All right, so we I'm already while I said earlier that your book will be so interesting, and just considering how many great stories you're telling us at this interview, I'm sure that your book I'll be reading from start to finish in one set.
Thank you so much.
So it's I'm assuming it's full of stories. And Eva has few last questions, Alex, for you. I know we can go on, and you can keep going about the stories, but
And Harry Potter.
and Harry Potter, yes. But we will leave it for the next interview for follow up, maybe in a
Yeah, I
few
think
months.
there should be a whole interview about Harry Potter.
Well, do you know what's the funniest thing? The book, and I didn't even do this on purpose. It was almost an accident. But one of the early readers of the book sent me a note saying they were so happy that Harry Potter references were bookends of the book. You know, there's a Harry Potter reference on the first chapter of the book and one in the final chapter.
Wow.
And that was completely by accident. It wasn't on purpose. It's just, but I guess it really does show how much not only I was moved by the book, but by how much it shaped the journey. And the Harry Potter quote in the final chapter of The Third Door is, you know, my most favorite quote from the whole series. And I'm sure you know it very well. It's when Dumbledore tells Harry, "It's our choices who show who we truly are, far more than our abilities."
Yeah, is that I forgot which book that was in.
It's when Harry, I believe, is, afraid of, inside of him is sometimes this, these dark motives or these dark thoughts. And what Dumbledore is trying to reassure to Harry is that it's not our abilities, it's not our thoughts that show who we are, it's our choices.
I think it's fifth, Eva, when he...
Yeah. Either
Maybe.
fifth or fourth, I think.
Right.
Third.
Well, it's so true because it's all our choice. What are we going to do? What are we going to think? How we're going to feel because of that?
Yeah.
And what are we going to do with our lives? So for our big dreamers, I'm sure they got a lot of valuable lessons. And big dreamers, just remember that if you have a dream, be persistent about your dream. Take massive action and give your service, because offer something to those people, right? And make sure you know why you're doing it.
And persistence, then action, and then give your service.
Absolutely.
So, Alex, what are some of your hobbies and things that you do for fun?
The things that I do for fun are I hang out. The thing that makes me happy is hanging out with my best friends and my mom and my sisters. I love to go on adventures in nature. So this summer, one of the things I'm most excited about is me and some of my best friends are going to Alaska and the wilderness and camping and rafting and, catching fish with our bare hands. So excited for that. And I also, of course, love to read and write. I love just for fun to write poetry because it's a way to not only, center myself, but also to, explore. There's this great quote that I read once that said, "I read to learn what I don't know, and I write to learn what I do know."
Yeah, that's very valuable.
And that's why I love journaling and writing poetry, because sometimes you surprise yourself by what you end up writing.
Yeah. And Alex, I know that you have already made many of your dreams a reality, but if you look at yourself today, what are some of your big dreams for the future?
My biggest dream with not only in life, but also with the third door is that it gets to the point, my dream is that in 10 years, you guys run into this, let's say a 12 or 13-year-old girl, and you're talking to her and she's like, oh yeah, I just started an internship at Google. And you're like, what are you talking about? You're 13. How did you do that? And she goes, oh, I just took the third door. That's my biggest dream, that in 10 years from now, people, even forget that term even came from a book. And it's just such a natural part of conversation. Because really what the third door is, it's not just an analogy. It's really a mindset of possibility. And what I've learned is that when you change what someone believes is possible, you change what becomes possible.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
And Alex, before we wrap up this interview, I would like to know how your parents changed their minds because you changed your career. Because we have a lot of parents listening, and I'm sure as you inspired so many young big dreamers and big dreamers, how parents should act and react and support their kids if they decide to change their path.
My parents and my grandparents, I can see in hindsight, they wanted me to be a doctor because they loved me and they wanted what's best for me. But, one thing that I learned about this journey is that the only person that knows what's right for you ultimately is you. So I actually think it was incredibly valuable that me and my mom had this, tremendous amount of tension and conflict when it came to deciding that I wasn't going to be a doctor anymore and I was going to set off to write this book, because that conflict and that tension with my mom forced me to, reevaluate and make sure that this wasn't just some, random silly idea, that it was really something I was 100% committed to. And sometimes I think having that tension is actually very important. And one of the biggest things that I've learned about this journey is that while my mom, was sobbing and crying and hysterical for weeks and weeks and weeks when I decided to not be a doctor anymore, my mom is my biggest supporter today. And this journey, if anything, is really a story of the unconditional love of parents.
That's such a huge lesson here for us as parents. Sometimes we project our dreams onto our kids, and we forget to see and listen and notice what they really like. And remember, this show, the Dream Big Show podcast, is about different paths in life. We had musicians, we had people who climbed mountains and making incredible money doing what they love, and people who changed their careers, and people, all of them followed their heart and they've been persistent, and they could not have done it without support of others. So I would encourage families who are listening to take a close look at what your kids love doing and what they pay more attention to. Obviously, we as parents should guide them and support them with resources and help them open those third doors as well. Any way we can. When Eva had the dream about Dream Big podcast, we just didn't say, okay, sure, when you grow up, you'll do it. It's like, hey, let's do it as a family. Let's go on an adventure together. And
I love that.
Incredibly happy how it's turning out. We don't know what's going to happen in 5 years, 10 years if she changes her mind, but having access, this is our way of opening the third door.
Absolutely. And it's so inspiring to me to see how this has unfolded for you guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you, Alex, so much for sharing. As I said, I cannot wait to get the book, and it's going to be on your website, thirddoorbook.com, and obviously we will include...
And it's publishing on June 5th.
Right,
yes.
2018.
On June 5th.
And Alex, what other websites, where other our listeners can find more about you as well?
So social media is always super fun and easy. My handle for all of it, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, is just @Alex Banayan, AlexBanayan. And like you said, the book website is thirddoorbook.com. THIRD, thirddoorbook.com. And I'm so, so grateful to have had this conversation because this was a ton of fun.
You're welcome.
And Alexieva has very last question because she loves closing the interview, and it's a short one.
If you go back in time and talk to your 10-year-old self, what would be the best advice?
Wow.
The hardest one, huh? Out of the whole show.
It's the most profound. Wow. There's so many things. I would tell him to love himself.
Good one.
Because I think it's so easy, because, I was bullied a lot when I was 10, to think that, when I was 10, part of me wondered if the bullies were right. And, now that I'm older, I can see in hindsight that when people are bullying you, it's really just their own pain, coming out onto you. And I wish I could go back to my 10-year-old self and tell him, you're great. You're a human being, and no one can be more human than you, and no one can be less.
We love it. Love, 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 love is in the air. Thank you, Alex, so much. And
thank you, guys.
Looking forward to meet you in person and to sign the book and to have hot chocolate with you.
Yes.
And we love that you shared
not
your
hot
wisdom.
chocolate, butterbeer.
Yes.
Oh, I know. Harry Potter, obviously. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your lessons in life. And I know it's just the beginning for you. And it's so important that you are on this adventure for all of us, pretty much.
Thank you guys so. I really cannot be more grateful. This has been a ton of fun. And what you guys are doing, the quest you guys are going on is, just the same, whereas you're going on it for other people.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly inspiring for me.
It's it's the same in Harry Potter. They're defeating Voldemort for other people.
Right, exactly.
Awesome. So keep dreaming, guys. Go take action, find that third door, open it wide, run through it, and get your dreams. You deserve
I love
it. Bye now.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Alex had so many great stories and tips to share with the big dreamers, and I thank him for being our guest. This interview is just the tip of the iceberg of Alex's wisdom, and we highly encourage you to pick up a copy of his new book at thirddoorbook.com. As always, be sure to check out our show notes at dreambitpodcast.com/88 for links to Alex's website and everything else we discussed in the episode. When you go to the show notes, you'll see a place to sign up for our Insider newsletter, where we send exclusive content, including a free audio that I made on my top 10 tips for making and keeping great friends. This audio is only available for those who subscribe, and I know this will really help you, so please be sure to have your parents join the newsletter to get it. There will also be a link to pick up your free Dream Big Journal, which you should definitely get if you haven't already. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Eva Cartman reminding you that you have unlimited potential. Your dreams are not optional. You need to make them essential. So take massive action to turn those big dreams into reality. Live with passion, the way life is meant to be. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!